The valley was quiet, too quiet for a place once soaked in war. Dust moved in soft spirals under the dying sun, painting the rocks gold and crimson. The wind carried only the faint echo of what had happened here years ago, screams, plasma fire, and the last cries of the fallen. The old battlefield was a grave now, forgotten by most. But not by everyone. From the ridge overlooking the valley, 3 alien soldiers lay hidden beneath their camouflage cloaks. Their skin shimmered in shades of gray-blue, eyes narrow and sharp. They belonged to the Color Dominion, one of the oldest powers of the galaxy. And yet, none of them spoke. They stared down the valley, their bodies tense. There, in the middle of the open ground, something small was moving. Movement, whispered Rek, the youngest of the 3. At 200 meters near the wreckage, the commander, a scarred Kaler named Tarith, slowly adjusted his visor. I see it. At first, it looked like nothing, a group of small shapes running and laughing. The sound was faint, carried by the wind. Not mechanical. Not animal. Children. But not Kaler. Not alien. They were human children. The smallest of them, maybe 6 years old, ran in circles around the rusted hull of a fallen transport ship. Another, taller one tried to catch her, laughing so loud the sound echoed off the rocks. They threw small stones, pretending they were grenades. They built forts out of broken armor plating. They were just playing, and they didn't care that high above them. 3 Color snipers had their scopes trained on their fragile, pink-skinned bodies. Tarith frowned. Why are they here? Rek whispered. No colonies near this sector, Commander. This world is abandoned. The 3rd sniper, Vale, checked his thermal readouts. No adult heat signatures. Only the cubs. Then where are their handlers? Tarith asked. Silence. Just the wind and the children's laughter. The Color were a warrior species. They had fought humans before, and they had lost. Entire fleets burned under human command. Entire worlds fell to their ground troops. But never had the Kaler seen this. Human cubs wandering freely on a dead battlefield, as if they owned it. Commander, Vale whispered. Should we engage? Tarith hesitated. The children were unarmed, weak, helpless, but still, they were human. And humans were never harmless, he remembered the stories. The humans had names for their soldiers, Marines, Rangers, Ghosts. But the galaxy had other names for them, Deathwalkers, World Breakers, the Alpha's kin, even their cubs. The stories said, were dangerous. Hold fire, Tarith finally said. Something's not right. Rek frowned. They're just playing. Exactly, Tarith interrupted. On a world crawling with ghosts and scavengers. No guards. No fear. Either they're insane or protected. He scanned the ridge opposite them. Broken rocks, silent trees, burnt soil. Then he saw it. A faint shimmer, barely visible. Heat distortion. Movement. Snipers. Human ones. Tarith's blood turned cold. Positions. Upper ridge. They see us. The 3 Color froze. Through his scope, Tarith spotted them. 3 human snipers lying still as statues. Their suits were camouflaged, faces hidden behind matte black helmets. They didn't move. Didn't aim. They just watched the children below. One of them turned his head slightly, and for a second, Tarith swore the human was looking straight at him through the scope. The alien commander's throat went dry. They know we're here, he whispered. Rek's voice trembled. Why aren't they shooting? Down in the valley, the children laughed again. The smallest girl had found something shiny, a human dog tag, half buried in the dirt. She wiped it clean, looked up at the sky, and smiled. The Color could hear her voice faintly. Dad used to wear one of these. Tarith felt something strange in his chest. Cubs of soldiers, he muttered. They are the offspring of the fallen. Then why bring them here? Vale asked. To remember, Tarith guessed. to remind themselves of who they are. But even as he spoke, the air changed, the wind stopped, the world went still. Every instinct in Tereth's body screamed danger. Far away, beyond the ridge, a faint glimmer of metal caught the dying light. Something huge was buried beneath the valley, half covered in sand and time. A massive ship, human make. A dreadnought, long abandoned but never forgotten. The Argus Dawn, the humans had called it. The last ship to fall in this sector. The children played near its broken spine. And now, something beneath it was waking. A low vibration rolled through the ground, subtle but unmistakable. The snipers on the ridge didn't move. They just shifted their rifles slightly, aiming toward the sky. "Commander," Vale said, his voice shaking. "I'm reading an energy spike." "It's human tech. Retreat?" Rek asked quickly. Tereth didn't answer. He looked down at the children again. They were still laughing, throwing stones, pretending to shoot each other with invisible guns. The smallest one raised her hand toward the ridge, waving at something the Kaler couldn't see. And that's when Tereth saw it. A shadow moving across the sand. Not a person, not a machine. Something larger. It came out of the light. Slow. Deliberate. Terrifying. A human exosuit. Massive and black, like a walking fortress. Its armor was marked with deep scars and the emblem of the Terran Vanguard, the same unit that had destroyed the Kaler S-fleet 20 years ago. The suit's steps were silent, yet the ground trembled beneath each one. It stopped beside the children. The visor opened with a soft hiss. Inside, a man, human, older, weathered, his eyes sharp as a blade. The children ran to him, shouting, "Dad!" The color froze. Tereth felt his blood run cold. The Alpha. He didn't need a scanner to recognize him. Every soldier in the Dominion knew that face from history files. Commander Elias Rohn. The man who led the human defense of the Argus Dawn. The Alpha of the Ridge. The one who wiped out 2 entire Kaler battalions alone. He was supposed to be dead. But there he was, standing. Alive and smiling as his cubs clung to his armor. Rek whispered, "That's impossible." Vale shook his head, terrified. He should be dust by now. Tereth's hands trembled slightly on his rifle. "The humans never die," he said quietly. "They just wait." Below, the man looked up, not at his children. Not at the wreckage, but straight at the ridge where the Kaler were hidden. Their cloaks meant nothing. Their silence meant nothing. He saw them, for one unbearable second. Their eyes met, alien and human. Predator and prey. Then Elias Rohn raised his hand slowly and pointed too. Fingers toward the sky. The snipers on the FICO. Opposite ridge moved instantly. 3 bright red beams painted. Across the rocks where the Kaler hid. "Run!" Tereth shouted, but it was too late. The first shot struck the ground beside them, vaporizing stone. The second sliced through Rek's cloak, burning his shoulder. The third missed Vale by inches, turning the rock behind him into molten glass. The Kaler scrambled, diving for cover, hearts pounding. Tereth rolled behind a boulder, his chest heaving. "Hold fire. Don't engage." He peeked out. The human snipers weren't pursuing. They didn't even shift position. They had warned them, not killed them, down below. The man in the exosuit lifted his daughter and whispered something to her. The girl laughed and pointed at the sunset. The rest of the children gathered around him, small hands clutching his armored arms. He turned, looking once more at the ridge. Then, with a soft metallic hum, his armor sealed again. The lights across his body flared bright blue. The air shimmered with distortion as he activated the stealth field. And just like that, the Alpha and his cubs vanished. Only the silence remained. Tereth slowly rose from his cover. "Did you record that?" "Yes," Vale said, his voice shaking. "Every frame." "Good," Tereth replied, though his voice was hollow. The council will want to see what we saw today. What did we see? Rek asked quietly. They ignored us. They ignored the snipers. They just played. Tareth looked at the empty valley, where the laughter of children still seemed to echo in the air. He whispered, almost to himself, they saw the cubs of the Alpha playing. And they ignored the human snipers on the ridge. He turned to his soldiers. Because the humans were never our enemies, he said softly. They were our warning. The night fell over the valley like a curtain of dark glass. The twin moons of Acheron 5 rose slowly, their pale light spreading across the silent battlefield. The air shimmered faintly where the humans had vanished, traces of stealth tech. Still fading into nothing, Tareth stood at the ridge. Motionless dot, the image of the human Alpha holding his cubs, refused to leave his mind. The way he looked at them, not like prey, not like soldiers, but like a father who had seen too many wars. The battlefield that once belonged to the dead now echoed with laughter. And that was somehow more terrifying than any weapon. Behind him, Rek limped slightly, his arm still smoking from the sniper's warning shot. Commander, he whispered. We should report this. The Dominion will want to know. I will, Tareth said softly, eyes fixed on the valley. But not yet. Why not? Vale asked. You saw him. You know what that means. Tareth's jaw tightened. Yes, it means the war is not over. Echoes of the past, they retreated to their cloaked shuttle hidden in the rocks. Inside, the hum of systems returned, scanning the valley below. Every reading came back strange, residual human energy signatures. Deep underground, pulsing like a heartbeat. Vale leaned over the console. Commander, the readings. They matched Terran military frequency. But the ship below, the Argus Dawn, was destroyed. It shouldn't be active. Nothing about today should be, Tareth murmured. Rek's voice trembled. If he's really Elias Rohn, he died 20 cycles ago. We saw the footage. Tareth turned toward him slowly. You saw what the humans wanted you to see. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the shuttle. Then a soft ping interrupted them, a proximity alert. Something was moving in the valley again. Through the viewport, they saw lights flickering near the wreckage, faint blue arcs dancing across the sand. Drones. Small, spherical, moving in precise patterns. Human tech, recon units, Vale said. They're repairing something. Tareth adjusted the zoom. The drones were not scavenging. They were building. Reconstructing broken armor plates, welding frames, clearing debris. The Argus Dawn, once a dead husk, was being rebuilt piece by piece, like something preparing to wake from a long sleep. A shadow moved between the drones, the Alpha himself. His armor now open, revealing the human beneath. Sweat on his face, torchlight glinting off his eyes. He worked in silence beside his cubs, guiding their hands as they helped him place small pieces of metal into strange patterns. They're not just playing anymore, Vale whispered. They're rebuilding something. Or someone, Tareth replied grimly. The signal hours passed. The caller watched in silence as the humans worked under the moons. Then the scanners detected something else, a signal. Low frequency, encrypted, pulsing like a heartbeat through the wreckage. Source. Beneath the ship, Rek said. Depth, about 50 meters. Tareth narrowed his eyes. Open channel. Try to isolate. As he tuned the frequency, a distorted voice echoed through the shuttle speakers, deep, mechanical, yet unmistakably human. Argus Dawn, auxiliary core systems online. Awaiting Alpha command code. Rek swallowed hard. The ship's AI, it's still alive. The voice returned, clearer now. This world remains under Terran quarantine. Unidentified life signatures detected on perimeter ridge. Observation mode active. The caller froze. It knows we're here, Vale whispered. Then the AI spoke again. Alpha Roan authorization confirmed. Initiating retrieval protocol. The ground began to rumble. Dust rose in columns. The wrecked ship groaned as massive panels shifted, gears grinding against years of rust. A faint blue glow spread beneath the valley, lines of light connecting every fragment of the fallen. Dreadnought. Tareth gripped the console. He's reactivating the Argus Dawn. That ship could level a continent. But the strange part, the drones didn't aim their weapons outward. They aimed them upward, toward the stars. As if calling something. What are they doing? Rek asked. They're signaling, Tareth said. But to who? The children and the machine below. The Alpha knelt beside his smallest daughter. She held a metallic sphere, small enough to fit in her hands. It pulsed faintly with blue light. It's ready, Dad, she said softly. He smiled, the kind of smile that didn't belong to a warrior, but to a man who carried ghosts. Good, now place it where I showed you. She walked carefully to the heart of the wreckage and set the sphere into a hollow chamber. The lights flared. The ground vibrated again, stronger this time. Even from the ridge, the Klar could feel it in their bones. Rek backed away from the window. Commander, we need to leave, now. But Tareth didn't move. His gaze was fixed on the human man below, the Alpha, standing tall against the light. There was sorrow in his eyes. And something else. Resolve. The AI's voice echoed once more through the coms, now thunderous and clear. Reawakening core memory. Releasing last directive of the Terran Vanguard. Then came silence, followed by a single line of human speech, old, heavy with time. Humanity does not retreat. We remember. The color S scanners went wild. Energy spikes surged from the valley floor. Pure power, old and angry, tearing through the sensors. The Argus Dawn began to rise. The impossible was happening. The rising metal screamed as the ground split open. Massive engines that hadn't burned in decades flickered to life. The dreadnought, once buried and broken, rose like a corpse dragged from the grave, its hull glowing with Terran insignia. The children watched in awe, holding hands as the ship lifted above the valley floor. Tareth could barely breathe. That ship alone destroyed our entire fleet during the siege of Iridian. Vale's voice cracked. He's bringing it back. Rek turned toward Tareth, panic in his eyes. If that ship's weapons come online, they won't, Tareth said quietly. Look at him. The Alpha stood beneath the ship, arms spread wide. He wasn't preparing for war. He was saying goodbye. The message moments later. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Clear, universal, and meant for everyone. Even the color received it. It was the Alpha's voice. To those who listen from the dark, I am not your enemy. The war you remember is over. My people are gone. Only echoes remain. The color stared, stunned. You came here hunting ghosts. But this world was never yours. It belongs to the fallen, to the children who remember them. He looked down at his cubs, smiling through tears. If you fear us, leave. If you understand, watch. Humanity endures not through conquest, but through memory. The signal ended with a faint tone, a melody, soft and haunting. A human lullaby. The dreadnought rose higher, its engines burning white. And then, without warning, it stopped. The light dimmed. The ship hovered silently above the valley, like a guardian watching over what it once protected. The Alpha turned to his children. It's time. Time for what? One of them asked. He knelt beside them, resting a hand on their shoulders. To go home. The armor around his body shimmered again, folding inward. A pulse of blue light surrounded the children. The air rippled, and in a heartbeat, they were gone. Vanished, just like before. Only the ship remained. The observation, the color shuttle trembled as the shockwave faded. Tareth sat in silence. Eyes still locked on the floating dreadnought, Rek finally spoke. "Commander, what do we tell the council?" Tareth didn't answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Tell them the Alpha is not dead. Tell them he still guards his cubs." Vale frowned. "And if they ask what we saw?" Tareth looked back at the valley. "Tell them the truth. Tell them we saw the end of fear." He stood, removing his helmet. "The humans didn't return for war. They returned to remember who they were. And maybe, to remind us what we became." Rex stared at him, confused. "You sound like you admire them." Tareth smiled faintly. "Admiration is not the word. It's understanding." Outside, the Argus dawn began to fade again, its light flickering like a dying star. One by one, the engines dimmed, and the ship sank back into the earth. By dawn, only dust and silence remained, as if it had never existed. But deep beneath the surface, the scanners still caught faint pulses, slow, steady. Like a sleeping heart, the Alpha's legacy was not gone. It was waiting. As the first rays of the sun touched the valley. Tareth whispered to the wind. They saw the cubs of the Alpha playing. And they ignored the human snipers on the ridge. He paused, his eyes narrowing as the horizon glowed. Because the humans were never guarding the children. The children were guarding us. The storm rolled over the valley 3 days after the Argus dawn vanished again. The sky burned red with dust and static. The air trembled with low thunder, not from nature, but from something deep beneath the ground. Tari stood outside the Kaler forward camp, staring toward the horizon. He had not slept. None of them had. The image of the human Alpha and his cubs still haunted his mind like an unfinished sentence. Vale approached quietly, holding a data slate. "The Council wants your report, Commander. They say your transmission made half the Dominion nervous." Tareth didn't turn. "Good. They should be nervous." Vale hesitated. "You told them the humans were rebuilding. That the Alpha still lives." Tareth's lips curved slightly. "I told them the truth. Whether they believe it is their problem." The younger soldier frowned. "And if they think we're lying?" Tareth finally looked at him. His eyes, tired and sharp, reflected the electric light of the storm. "Then they can come here themselves," he said softly. "And pray the humans don't wake up while they're standing here." The arrival by the fourth night, a new sound joined the wind, the whine of approaching ships. Kaler war frigates, descending from orbit. Their hulls gleamed like black knives against the blood-colored sky. Rek cursed softly. "The Council's elite. They sent the Judgment Wing." "Of course they did," Tareth muttered. "The Dominion never listens until it's too late." The ships landed near the ridge, kicking up plumes of dust. From the central ramp emerged a tall figure in white armor, trimmed with gold. High Warlord Kresha, the Dominion's most ruthless strategist. He was known for one thing: destroying what he didn't understand. "Commander Tareth," Kresha said coldly, "you reported seeing a human Alpha on this world." "Yes, Warlord," Tareth replied, keeping his tone steady. "I saw him. He reactivated the Argus Dawn. He spoke to us." "Spoke?" Kresha's mandibles clicked in irritation. "You expect me to believe a ghost gave you a speech?" "It was no ghost," Tareth said. "It was a warning." Kresha stepped closer. "Warnings don't concern the Dominion. Only threats. And I intend to remove this one." Tareth's pulse quickened. "If you strike this valley, you'll awaken something you can't control." Kresha's voice turned sharp. "Then it's time we find out what the humans left behind." He raised his gauntlet and gave a single order. "Deploy the plasma drills. Begin excavation." The drills screamed as they tore into the valley floor. Dust and sparks rained down. The scanners lit up with movement, deep, mechanical pulses echoing through the rock. "The readings are unstable," Rek warned. Energy spikes increasing every minute. Kresha didn't care. Keep digging. Within hours, they broke through to a massive chamber, metal walls covered in ancient Terran symbols. A door stood at the center, sealed shut, glowing faintly with blue light. It's human tech, Vale said. Still active after decades. Tareth stepped closer, reading the inscription carved into the steel. Simple human letters. Project Dawnfall, authorized personnel only. He swallowed hard. This isn't just a ship. It's a vault. Kresha's eyes glimmered. A vault of weapons, perhaps. Tareth shook his head. No, something worse. The awakening, the warlord moved forward, placing his hand on the door. Activate it. Warlord, I strongly advise, now. Kresha barked. The engineers connected power lines to the surface. Energy surged through the circuits. The blue light blazed white, and then the door opened. A gust of cold air burst outward, followed by silence. Inside, the chamber glowed with soft, pulsing light. Rows of pods lined the walls, dozens of them, each containing a human figure, motionless, suspended in some kind of stasis field. Rek's voice cracked. By the stars! They're alive! No, Tareth whispered. They're waiting. A voice echoed through the chamber's speakers, calm, mechanical, and unmistakably human. Identification confirmed. Commander Elias Roan. Status: deceased. Secondary command code accepted. Contingency mode active. The eye from the Argus Dawn, Kresha sneered. A dead man's machine. It can't harm us. But the AI continued. Contingency active. Final directive initializing. The lights turned red. A low hum filled the air. The pods began to open, one by one. Out stepped not soldiers, but constructs, human in shape, but metal in flesh. Eyes glowing blue, faces calm and cold. They were sentries, guardians left behind to protect something greater. Tareth felt his stomach twist. Those aren't weapons. They're caretakers. Caretakers? Kresha laughed. They'll make excellent targets. He raised his rifle and fired. The plasma bolt struck the nearest sentinel square in the chest. It staggered, but didn't fall. The wound sealed instantly, the metal glowing white-hot. Then it looked at Kresha and spoke. Aggression detected. Defensive mode engaged. The ground shook as the sentries moved. Lightning fast, silent, efficient. Plasma fire filled the air. Kaler soldiers screamed as their shots were reflected by invisible shields. Within minutes, the chamber turned into chaos. Tareth grabbed Rek's arm. We have to go. But what about move? They ran toward the exit as the sentries advanced, their voices merging into one cold chorus. Humanity sleeps. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. As they reached the ridge, the ground split open. The Argus Dawn's silhouette flickered back into view, emerging from beneath the valley once more. But this time, something else came with it. A massive energy field, expanding outward, wrapping the valley in a shimmering dome of light. The voice of the Alpha, a familiar voice, thundered through the coms. Not the I this time, but a human voice, deep and clear. Stand down. Every sentry froze. The gunfire stopped. Tareth turned toward the horizon. And there he was, the Alpha, Commander Elias Roan, his armor scarred, his face older, his presence commanding. The children stood beside him again, unharmed. This place is sacred, he said. You came here with greed. You will leave with memory. Kresha spat. You're a ghost. A relic of a dead race. Roan looked at him with calm pity. Perhaps. But even ghosts can teach the living. He raised his hand. The Argus Dawn's engines flared. The light intensified. We were called monsters once. We bled, we burned, we vanished. But we never forgot. The sentries echoed his words, their voices blending into a single, terrible harmony. Humanity does not retreat. We remember. The light spread outward, engulfing the entire valley. The Kyler frigates in orbit shuddered as their systems went dark. Every weapon, every scanner, every ship, disabled dot inside the dome. Tereth and his soldiers fell to their knees as visions filled their minds, memories not their own. They saw Earth. They saw oceans and cities. They saw humanity's rise, their wars, their courage, their extinction. And through it all, one message pulsed through their hearts. We do not exist to conquer. We exist to protect what remains. When the light faded, the Alpha and his children were gone. So was the Argus dawn. Only silence and a faint hum of energy remained. A heartbeat. Beneath the soil. The new understanding hours later, under a calm dawn, Tereth climbed the ridge again. Smoke drifted from the destroyed drills. The valley was quiet. Rek limped beside him. Commander, what just happened? Tereth looked down at the valley, now shimmering with faint blue veins of light beneath the surface. They showed us what? That the humans never built monuments. They built guardians. He turned toward the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight touched the sand. We thought they left the galaxy behind. But they didn't. They stayed to make sure we wouldn't repeat their mistakes. Rek's voice softened. What about Kresha? Tereth shook his head. Gone, or maybe forgiven. He smiled faintly. No one truly leaves a human battlefield. Not even the victors. The legend weeks later, Tereth's report reached the Dominion Council. It spoke of the Argus Dawn, the Alpha, and the valley that hummed like a living memory. Most called it superstition. Some called it fear propaganda. But a few, the oldest generals, the ones who had fought humans, said nothing. They simply nodded because they remembered the same voice. Long ago, across the stars. Humanity does not retreat. Humanity remembers. Epilogue, the Ridge years later. A Kaler scout returned to Acheron 5. The valley was overgrown with strange blue vines. Glowing faintly under the night sky, in the center of the valley, stood a single monument. A statue made of silver and steel, weathered by time. It depicted a human man in battle armor, kneeling. One hand resting gently on the head of a child. At the base of the statue, carved in both Terran and Kaler script, were the same words. They saw the cubs of the Alpha playing, and they ignored the human snipers on the ridge. Because some guardians do not need to fight. They only need to be remembered.